In other words, it depends on where you're brought up. Did you know that Lincoln was Irish? It depends on your group and the values that you exchange. And if you want a world without war, without hatred, without crime, and without stupidity, it can be arranged if you follow this bit. If we consider at some time, which society will at a later time, I hope it would be sooner, that all of the earth become the common heritage of all nations. All of the resource of the earth, the common heritage of all nations. And if you believe in God, if you understand the teachings of all religions, there were no property lines in heaven, no banks, no personal positions in which one person is elevated above another. That if the earth were the common heritage of all nations, and all of the artificial boundaries removed that separate people, there would be no basis for war, no basis for armament. The world you live in is an old world. Its language is old. Its values are old. And our institutions of education fail to touch the social system. You want to be careful. Don't touch that. This is an area that you don't want to get involved in. Well, in order for you to grow, in order for you to make the world a better place, you have to face this situation. I don't say that people are going to sit back and do that. According to all historical records, no civilization, anyway, to my knowledge, has ever sit back to plan the future. Exactly what we're going to do, how we're going to live, how we're going to work out transportation. No, we just build highways all over the place. Although you go to school and you learn something, you learn that a straight line is the shortest distance between two given points. Well, look at a road map of the United States, and I think you'll find spaghetti all over the place. Rarely do you see that. Look at your cities, every building a different size and shape. This does not express individuality. It's utter chaos. At 4 o'clock, all the cars come out of this building, and they can't get across that bridge. So you've got to build another bridge. So you elect people to political office that are totally incompetent. They are neurally bankrupt. I don't care whether you're Democrat or Republican. They don't have the value system to solve these problems that exist. They are not educated in that way. They're brought up with a uniform set of values. You're indoctrinated to a set of values that are unreal. And in order for me to get these ideas out there, it's extremely difficult because we need films, we need equipment in order to do that. What the Venus Project has to offer is a way of life without ambiguity, a language that has a much more precise form of communication. A language that has a much more precise form of communication. A much more precise form of communication. Decisions. We don't believe that anyone ought to make decisions. We believe that people ought to arrive at decisions. Now here's what that means. You go across the country and pick up samples of the soil from all over the nation. You bring it to Central Agriculture, analyze that soil, and then turn to your health department and ask them what people need. Manganese, whatever they need. And what is this soil good for? What should we grow? Tomatoes, and then rotate the crop, move to something else. That's what I mean by surveying the conditions. Not, what's your opinion? What's your opinion? Democracy is a crude and vulgar system and should have been phased out centuries ago. But we don't have enough outside points of view on radio and television. When I talked this way on the Larry King Show, he said to me, just a minute, I depend on those people that you're attacking. I wasn't attacking the automobile companies. I just said that if you did that, it would be safer. If you put proximity units on automobiles, most of you have them in your home now. When you walk over the building, the light goes on. That's a proximity unit. Put that in your car, and if you're backing up and a child is crawling behind you, it stops, no matter how much you step on the gas. I don't want any sign slippery when wet. I want an abrasive put in the highway and take that sign down so it's not slippery when wet. I don't want to say to kids, stay away from drugs. I want to make life so interesting for people So they don't want drugs. They don't want to dull their senses. They want to become keen, and they want to become fully aware, I'm using older language, and conscious of their surroundings. It is painful to deaden your awareness when life is beautiful, when what you do goes out to people and makes their lives better. Love is transforming all of the verbal and paper proclamations to a way of life. The shameful thing about our century is that there was only one Edison, one Louis Pasteur, one Nikola Tesla, one Madame Curie. We should have had thousands of them, and we will, once we get rid of the artificial boundaries that separate people. To change the relationship between people, where the male and female are not given separate roles, where the female can say, I want to be a biochemist or a physicist, and she goes that way. When you hand a girl a doll, you're placing a set. You're beginning to manipulate the people. Everybody's afraid of controlling human behavior. You're always controlling behavior. When you pick up your little girl and say, don't play with that little Lutheran boy across the way, and you put him down again, or don't talk to that little Catholic girl across the way. Well, you're always indoctrinating children. Who loves you more than anything in the world? The candy store man. No, your mommy and your daddy. See, indoctrination continuously. And then all of us together sing, we are free. Let's go. We are free. So beware. Whenever you hear of freedom and all that sort of thing, watch out. Because a real free society, the closest I've ever come to it, was in Polynesia. I lived in the South Pacific Islands for a while, and the natives gave me bananas and coconuts. All that. They were very generous, and they had no word for work. Would you believe that? They went fishing all day, they played, they had luau's. And they said, Jock, you know, what you want? And I said, well, I would like an outrigger canoe. And they built one for me. A few days after they brought it to my hut, I heard some rustling outside, and they were all carrying the canoe away. I said, what's going on? Said, you no use. It's a different value system. Now, the men and women walked around nude on the island when I got it, a long time ago. And I never saw a native poke another native, hey, get a load of that chick. None of that. None of that. They looked at the eyes of women when they talked to them. Never, hey, look at that. Never at the legs. The motion picture cameras and all your movie theaters are dollying up and down the hindquarters and all. And you wonder why men are like that? They are not like that. They are made like that by culture. Then the missionaries arrived. And the little girls used to come to church, you know, innocent, listening. And they put the T-shirts on them. And the girls had no idea why they were putting T-shirts on them. What's it for? It's like me covering your nose. You can't go into a room big unless your nose is covered. Well, the girls cut 2 holes in the T-shirts and came to church. So we're dealing with many different cultures, subcultures, and values. Our culture, if we are to grow and build a civilization worthy of humankind, we have to have a quantum jump in the way we look at our world, people, and ourselves. The Venus Project is the redesign of a culture in which the elements that comprise the culture are different. For example, our cities are round, not because I like round cities. The city is round. The center of the city has a socially integrated computer. This may be a medical center. This might be an engineering center. And if you work in the medical center, you live in beautiful gardens with running streams and waterfalls. And every district is the same distance from the center. There are no cars in the city. You get on a conveyor and dial where you want to go to. There's no crime in the city. Just before the public library in the United States, people said, well, you can't really do that. The people never bring back the books. They'll keep them. They won't return them. Of course, all that was incorrect. I want to build a library where any child can walk in, check out a camera, check out art materials, check out water skis, make things available. People don't steal. No one's going to hit you on the head to take your watch off if it's available. Well, how are you going to pay for this central library that gives children these things for nothing? Well, it cost about $50,000 to keep a kid in jail 1 year. An adult, $75,000 a year. Food, clothing, shelter, dental care. Isn't it easier to do it in a different way? I would love to go to Mexico and say, what's your problem? They say, well, senor, we don't have the modern machinery you have. Give them modern machinery. Build schools for them. And they won't be coming over the border. What makes them come over the border? Hunger, lack of employment. They say, oh, it's the goddamn Mexicans, you know what I like. Oh, there's nothing like that. Everything is shoved by something else. You are told that a tree falls over. You are told that a sailboat sails. A sailboat cannot sail unless acted upon by a resident force called the wind. A tree does not fall. If it rains and it's asymmetric and the soil becomes loose, gravity does the rest. The tree doesn't fall. Plants do not grow. They require radiant energy, nutrients, water. Stop any of those things and the plant stops. Human beings are not self-operating entities. We are operated by many resident forces. Of course, many of us are not aware of that. It looks like we're perfectly free, making our own decisions. I know I think for myself. I'm sure you do. That's an illusion. Because if you're brought up to believe in the Kennedy rocker, you want one for your home. It'll injure your back, distort your anatomy. But Kennedy had one like that, and I want one like that. When you break the patterns that have been established by existing society, you begin to move people in a new direction. Again, I do not mean to offend anybody. All that I ask you to do is think about this, toss it around. This is what the Venus Project advocates. The Venus Project is a design for culture in which we bridge the difference between all nations. How is that done? By a universal language, the blueprint. If you open a blueprint in Japan, they know what you're talking about. If you do it, write a prescription for England, Japan, France, the pharmacologist understands that. There's no discrepancies. There's no ambivalence. I wonder what he meant by that. It's clear. The language we use daily is not. The language of warmth and love are verbal excuses and verbal outlets for some people for avoiding their responsibility to make the world a better place for everyone.
For those of you who are new to quantum grammar, correct communication, parsec, syntax grammar, the first prepositional phrase in each sentence is always your cause. The second prepositional phrase in each sentence is always your consequence, otherwise known as your effect. But anytime you start a word with a vowel followed by a double consonant, FF, it means no. So that's why we don't use the negative word, effect. If we have more than one claimant, and there are multiple claimants in your cause, and it's a plural, then we change the verb of thinking to an R. It is a singular, R is plural. After the verb, the prepositional phrase is always a possession. And if you have multiple prepositional phrases after your verb, it always goes possession, assignment, authority, possession, authority, possession, authority. And you always have your authority at the end of your sentence, at the end, taking jurisdiction with the rules of the continuance of the evidence for that duty within that sentence. I don't want to say responsibility because already means no. So the duty for the performance is built within the last prepositional phrase, the authority, on the vessel contract. So these are some of the things that David is talking about when he's talking about the assignment of authority. We use the prepositional phrase by at the end. Now, if you were going to take the sentence backwards, and you are moving the sentence from instead of left to right, from right to left, now the prepositional phrases change. And there's a mathematical sequence of that, which we'll get into, but let me just show you real quick how we use the opposite preposition. This is the key to the frontwards and backwards certification. So we would say, instead of being the authority at the end, and it would be by, when we take the sequence backwards, or the sentence backwards, the authority becomes a for. Now the possessive, in this particular case, becomes an of, where we had the consequence or the effect as the of above. So now you have your verb of thinking, is a singular, are is plural, and then backwards, instead of, what's the opposite of? With. So we're interchanging our prepositions, and the opposite of for is by. And the math sequence of that is, what goes in must come out. 1 plus 2 equals 3. The mirror image of that is 3 minus 2 equals 1. How do you check your problems? What goes in comes out.